Hey everybody,
What's going on, guys?
I'm Jay,
And I am Chris the Bird Nerd.
and we
We
are
are
the
the
Bird
Bird
Brain.
Brains. Hey, I think we were on sync on that one. At least on my end, we were on sync. I don't know.
Yeah, I've given up trying. I mean, I don't think, I think the way our app works too, like either one of us can be in front and we'd have no way of knowing. So it's not like we could figure out, like, okay, I got to say it 1 second after you and we'll be good. I think we're just forever toast on that.
Yeah, you guys
What?
drop in the comments. Give us a rating, 1 through 10, 10 being great on
Yeah.
our bird brains. Maybe humble us a little bit. Maybe we'll think of a new slogan.
Yeah, we need to get one day when we hit the big time, we'll get a producer who can fix all that
Yeah,
stuff.
there you go. Yeah, they'll tell us what to
Yeah.
say, not to say right now. We just wing it. So
Yeah, we are making this up as we go, and it's like whose line it is it anyway. Everything's made up and the points don't matter, right?
I love that show. It's
But
good. It's a
oldie, I
good
guess
one.
they're not still making it, but it was good back in the day. I used to watch it when I got home from school.
They've
So,
actually come back and done a few more seasons and iterations of it with half of the same people, half new people. But yeah,
is it still good?
yeah. I mean, I don't watch it as much now as I did back then. But the episodes that I've watched, I've enjoyed. They've had some pretty
You always
hilarious
worry about a
skits.
remake, whether it's going to
Right?
be as good or not. Like I saw they're remaking the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, and
Are they really? Oh
yeah,
man,
and there's no way. There's
with
no way that it's going to be as good.
the
You have to have Johnny Depp.
yeah, I'm like the billions of money that they already made off it. They it's not
Well, they're
enough
going to
for them.
make billions more.
Well, I don't know. I'm with you. I'm on the Johnny Depp train, and
He's the right guy for that role. You know, there every once in a
absolutely.
while there's certain like you can't do Die Hard without Bruce Willis.
Yep,
It's the right guy for the role. You know.
absolutely.
There's some that you could maybe interchange the person, but you can't interchange that
Yep,
role.
yep. I'm right there
So
with you,
not
man.
when it's played that perfectly. So yeah,
Uh,
maybe one day we'll get Disney involved. We'll have a Bird Brains podcast, and then they'll go back and look up this episode and fire us for
yeah,
talking
there you
smack.
go. Maybe we'll spark another cartoon
They'll
series
just
for
remake it. It'll
Disney or
just be
something.
different
Yeah,
guys that aren't us, and they
yeah.
just won't even explain it.
Better looking. More intelligent. Sure
I
to
don't know if
happen.
you can
So.
get better looking than me. That's tough.
Well,
But
yeah.
maybe Clooney. They could get Clooney. Brad Pitt can
We'll
do
put
you.
Brad
We'll
Pitt
be
for me.
good.
I was just gonna say
Yeah,
throw Brad
yeah,
Pitt in for me. So
yeah, yeah. That's about an even trade, I think.
we'll take
All
it.
right. So speaking of Hollywood and all that, we're going to talk about lighting today.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
tough segue, but we'll do it. Um, yeah. So birds need light.
yeah.
Um,
And we've got a lot of comments over the last several weeks, Jay, of what's the right type of lighting? How long do you have lighting for? Do specific birds need specific requirements for lighting? So hopefully we can kind of touch base on those and answer your guys' questions around that through our experience over the years, and what types of lighting work best, things like that. So hopefully we can answer some questions for you guys. This will be
and
valuable for you. And
yeah, I do think, you know, if we're ranking like things we've talked about, this is a pretty high level discussion. Light, when you're getting into lighting and stuff like that, that's serious bird keeping. I don't think my first 10 years in the hobby, I really gave lighting much thought. I wish I
yeah,
had, but
right.
I was busy thinking about,
Yeah,
you know,
yep.
seed and things like that. But when you think you've got all the basics mastered, I think lighting is a thing that eventually, you know, for
Yeah,
me, I think at this point makes a huge difference.
for sure. And I think, it's like you said, when you get into the more difficult species of birds, finches and hookbills, that's when lighting becomes more of an importance, right? And you have to really tailor that lighting and different environmental needs to those birds to get the results you want. And so some of your easier species of birds, I mean, they'll breed in the middle of the
In the
night,
dark,
right?
yeah.
It's like but yeah, when you start getting into more advanced bird keeping, that's when lighting becomes a critical part of your success.
Yeah, I think I've read, I mean, growing up, right, when I first got into this, I just kept finches in my bedroom, and I'm pretty sure I turned on the light when I woke up for school, and when I left for school, I'm pretty sure I turned the light off. Now, I did have
Yeah.
windows.
Yep.
I did have some windows, but definitely not no rhyme or reason at all, and definitely like some in the dark. And zebra
Oh
finches and
yeah.
society finches are still kicking out babies.
Yep.
I don't think you could do that with a wax bill of any variety.
No, absolutely not. I mean, and I think in one of our podcasts before, I told you my older brother that keeps birds, he's got a big aviary outside. He had zebra finches kicking out babies in the middle of winter, and might I add, there's snow on the ground. It's below freezing temperatures. They bred in his outdoor aviary that's not heated, not covered, with, 8 to 10 hours of light a day in the middle of winter, and they're still kicking out babies. Like it's just nuts.
Yeah, so I think, and I don't want anyone who has a zebra finch to think like, oh, cool, I'll just skip
Yeah,
this one.
no, no, please don't.
Yeah, I think so. I guess we haven't really ever talked about this before, but when I think about breeding success, there's kind of two levels to breeding, right? So there's did they have babies? So
Yeah,
did my zebra finch have one or two chicks? I've got some friends, shout out Jacob, going through kind of level one right now, where they're getting
nice.
society finches and zebra finches to kick out one, two, three chicks. Now, if when you see online these big successful breeders that are kicking out five, six, seven birds in a clutch,
Yep,
a big chunk of that is lighting.
yep.
And it's also something, once you have it installed, it's not that hard to do. I mean, I have mine on a timer. I think you do too, right?
Yep, yep, yep.
So
Got
it's
mine on
not
timer.
something that you like, that doesn't mean you've got to go out at the exact same time every day and turn the lights on. It just means you got to get a timer.
Right.
The cheap timers you can get at the grocery store for $8 that have the little
Mm-hmm.
dial with the push-in tabs, and I've still got some like that.
Yep.
Those are not my favorite. They're kind of a pain, and they're not super precise. You
Yeah.
get within like 10, 15 minutes of where you're trying to be.
Yeah, and after a
Um,
while, they kind of tend to drift off of
yeah.
current time, right? So you got to readjust them, a couple of months out and make sure they're still lined up.
So I guess let's start there. What are you using for a timer now?
Yeah. So I bought a timer off of Amazon, and it with the current aviary that I have, that's a little bit more advanced,
Is it
and it
digital?
can, yeah, it is digital, and it has like a thermostat built into it, things like that. That's been really nice, but I can adjust when I want my times to change, and it will adjust it in increments for me, which is pretty cool.
That's fancier than I've got. Yeah, so I,
Yeah.
I just have a digital timer that is built into a light switch.
Uh-huh.
And so it basically has a clock and you can program it. And I think I can do like up to six different on-offs a day. I don't do that. I just have an on and an off. And, keep in mind, my birds year round are half outside, even though I have it covered for temperature. So some of this God is doing for me.
Right.
But on the inside birds, and I have some birds that do just live in the shed, like my whole hookbill flight. So for those birds, I've got the timer hooked just to the main lights.
Yeah.
And what is or in general, do you have like, I pretty much always do 15 minutes before sunrise and 15 minutes after sunset, like legal sunrise and sunset, because obviously you get light before sunrise and you get light after sunset. So I kind of try to sync it up with
Hmm.
whether there's light outside or not. Is that what you're doing too?
Yeah. Yeah. And so this last year and a half, I've almost 2 years, I have tried a different approach. And I've tried to breed birds
Oh yeah,
throughout the winter time.
you breed in the winter, and that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's thrown how I've kept my lighting schedule off just a little bit. Beforehand, I would do exactly that, Jay. Really, I would mirror the sun, right? Especially the birds that are inside that don't get natural light. And I would just mirror those times. In the winter time, I do extend my lighting hours, so my lights will turn on around sunset, or sorry, sunrise, but then I'll keep them on a couple hours after sunset just because I am still breeding. And in the wintertime, I'm breeding the easier species like your zebra finches, your society finches, ones that don't necessarily require huge amounts of light.
Hmm.
So I breed them in the wintertime. So I have anywhere from 10 to 11 hours of light a day. But then that's still short enough amount of time that my canaries will molt, my Gullian finches will molt, things like that. So, um, and it seems to work okay. It does extend, it kind of slows down the molts. Like my canaries take longer to molt and a little bit longer to come into breeding condition. And you guys will see that in actually my video I'm posting tomorrow is talking about my canaries coming in. Well, I guess when you guys see this video, it'll be in the past, but, um,
The
yeah,
video he
so
just posted. Go check
yeah,
it
my
out.
video I just posted. There you
Mhm.
go. So it does extend, how quickly they come back into breeding condition, but I'm okay with that. I've been able to work out a system, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so the big thing we're talking about with light that, and we haven't said the words, but we've already explained it, is getting birds into breeding condition or facilitating them getting into breeding condition. And so there's basically two overarching, and we need to do a whole podcast on getting birds into breeding condition, but the
yeah,
two overarching methods you can use. You can keep birds synced up with their natural timeline, which, like, so southern hemisphere birds, your Australian birds, they would be opposite us in the northern hemisphere. Or you can swap the birds over.
hmm,
And indoors, in general, it's easier to not swap them. But if you're breeding outdoors like me, you're going to have to sync them up with natural light because that's what they're getting. So,
yep,
and that might take a season. You might lose a
yep,
breeding season doing it that way. Um, and so that's something to consider as part of this. So if you're just going to keep your birds indoors and
yeah,
you've got southern hemisphere birds, you might want to do the lighting opposite what's actually happening outside.
and I would probably say, Jay, the two species of birds that are the most unforgiving when it comes to lighting is your canaries and your Gouldian finches. If you mess that up and you give them the incorrect lighting and it sends them into a molt, you got to wait till the next year for the most part until they,
Yeah, you're pretty
you
much
know,
done.
it's
Yeah.
and I think there's many times we get comments of, "Hey, I'm frustrated. My birds aren't breeding. Why aren't they breeding? It's springtime." Um, it could be that they just haven't quite synced up, and it may take an extra extended period of time for them to get synced up, used to your environment, used to your lighting schedules, and then hopefully, 6 months or longer, they come back into breeding condition and breed for you. But
Yeah, and I
sometimes
mean, it
it
might
does
be
take a
fall for
rundown.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah, it might be fall
exactly.
for them in their head. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, it's one of those things that, as I've gotten more into breeding, like I said earlier in the podcast, the more I've realized what plays a role instead of just like, here's seed and nesting material and maybe I'll get birds.
yeah.
Um, yeah, do you use, for your lighting, do you use special bulbs of any kind?
So most of my lighting is LED um, bulbs. I do have a few fluorescent ones, but uh, mostly just the LED with the high lumen. And then I also now, especially with my aviary built, I try to 6 months out of the year, the birds that I'm not breeding, they have access to the outdoor aviary to get natural sunlight. So I kind of got them on a rotation of both of that, the LED lighting, which
Right.
is your cheaper options. They have special UV lights out there,
Yeah.
for birds and reptiles, and I think they do a great job for the reptilian species. I've bought them in the past, and I haven't really seen or noticed a difference with the birds. But if your birds strictly are inside and are not by a window and they don't get any natural light at all, I would probably consider maybe putting a little bit more money in and getting some of those lights just to you know for, to help them get the UV rays and whatnot that they need for their
Right.
feathers and their plumage, but they are more expensive and maybe don't give you the as good of results as they advertise.
To make vitamin D, by the way, is what we're really getting to here. So if you're you're never going to have your birds have any direct sunlight. You do need to figure out how to make sure they're getting vitamin D in a supplement or something like that.
Absolutely.
So I use a third option. I use plant growing lights. I think they're for
Hmm.
people to grow pot,
Yeah.
um, or whatever, hydroponics or something.
Uh-huh.
So I think they're Philips brand. They're GRO is what they're called, grow lights or grow bulbs, and they're
Yep.
expensive. A one fluorescent tube, a 4 foot fluorescent tube is like $40. But they last a long time. And so what I do in my shed, I've got two two bulb receptacles, and I have one normal high lumen and one grow light in each receptacle. And those do work, and I know they work because if I get up close to them, I can feel my head starting to sunburn, my bald head.
Wow.
So I know that those are working. But like like Chris said, not cheap. Um, but yeah, I mean I think that's the important thing. I think you got to make sure your birds are getting what they actually need, vitamin and nutrition wise, and you need vitamin D, and you've got to get them synced up for breeding season. Whether you're on southern hemisphere or northern hemisphere breeding season, either
Yeah.
way, that you should have a plan and be aiming for one or the other.
Yeah, and I think this is a topic where I would still there's a lot of information out there on the internet about lighting and different species of birds. I would even reference to some of the older books, the finch books, the canary
Mm,
books. They're still pretty accurate on the lighting piece and what those species need for lighting to breed and to molt. That hasn't changed too much throughout the years. I think that's been a pretty steady
right.
constant. We've learned more about how to provide better types of lighting and better nutrition, right? But the hours of lighting and how to prep them and slowly bring them in, that's pretty valuable. I've got like a book here. It's one of my canary handbooks, and I think it was published in 2001, but I was just reading the lighting before this podcast, and I would still say, yep, that's exactly what I do now as far as following that schedule to bring my canaries into breeding and then sending them out of breeding and having them molt. So, and I would probably say, Jay, I, I I put it this way: in the wild, there's three things that any animal needs to survive and particularly to breed, right? Lighting, food, and the right environment. So when you think of lighting in the wild, in your winter months, you have less light, right? It's colder and you don't have as much light. Now, we have some parts of the world that they
Yeah,
have
if you're
lots
breeding
of
finches in
lights.
Alaska, good
Yeah,
luck.
if you
Yeah,
got
I don't know
in
what to
your
tell you.
Alaska in the summertime, I mean, you got so much light, and then the wintertime, there's, 3 hours of light. But um, in general, right, your winter times have less light, your summer times have more light. But each day is a very small increment of more light or less light, right, depending on which season you're coming into, which slowly brings those birds into condition, right? So when spring and summer hit, that's when your period of light is extending every day, and the birds notice that, right? They feel that, they feel the temperature change, they feel the light change. It's the same. I put that, in captivity. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to mirror the wild, right? And the slow increments every day of light, so when we say we increase our light, it's not one day we all of a sudden increase our hours of light from 10 hours to 14 hours, because that's what the book says, how many hours they need to breed. That'll shock your birds, right? If you do that, but slowly, every other week, increasing that light by 30 minutes, and it takes time. That's a month and a half progress of getting from 10 hours to, 12 hours, right? So just taking that into consideration with the lighting piece, especially if you're trying to specifically breed and you have certain breeds that are very light dependent, take that into consideration. Do your homework, read the books that they have available, Google it. There's some pretty good uh, internet sites out there that talk about this as well that you can reference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I'm doing the same thing. So, to give some more like specific context, just what I'm doing, I'm starting in February, adding 15 minutes a week so that by the time I get nest boxes in March, I'm at like 11, 12 hours a day. And then by the time I get to May, which is probably like the peak, which I don't know when summer solstice is. I guess it's in May or June or July. But by May, I'm up to 13-ish hours a day, 14-ish hours a day.
Yeah.
Then I kind of hold there for a while, and then I start to creep off on the back end, and it'll send your birds out of breeding condition and into a molt. So
Yep.
this is, we've said it before, and I don't necessarily like saying it this way, but when you're breeding birds, you're kind of playing God. You're creating this sort of artificial environment in a lot, their food, their water, their cage, everything. So a big part of that is light. So, just like natural light, it would slowly increase. It would be bright, 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 and slowly decrease. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah. And when you look at that, Jay, I mean, we've got quite a few people out there, listeners, that they've got some unique species of birds that are incredibly dependent on that lighting piece, right? You've got your wyatt eyes, you've got your strawberry finches, you've got your weaver finches. All of those birds, the males transition into their breeding plumage, and that's triggered by the light and the temperature, right? And if that lighting doesn't change, then they don't change into that breeding plumage. And I've had breeders and people reach out to me in the past, say, hey, I've got these species of birds, but my male's not coming into condition. It's probably a big factor is your lighting, right? And
You haven't hit the
contr-
switch in his brain yet.
Yep, exactly. And controlling that, and especially if you have them indoors and they're not seeing the natural sunlight and the extended days of light, every day. So just taking that into consideration, if you're wanting to breed, some of those species, I would throw your Goulian finches, your canaries into that same group, even though they don't change into breeding plumage, but there is a strong correlation and trigger to that extended period of light for them to breed.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think for me, I think that's it for light. You got anything else?
No, I think that's good. I would just say again, do your research. Lighting is
More than
important.
one place.
Yeah, right. We don't want to be stuck in a room that only gives us 2 hours of light a day, right? Put that into perspective if you have any kind of animal, right? And especially birds. And so do that. And then, drop some comments down below if you guys got some specific questions that maybe we haven't addressed here in the podcast that you're experiencing with your finches. Yeah, drop them in the comments. We'd be happy to answer them for you guys and try and share our light on it. And hopefully we've got an answer for you. I'll leave it to Jay
Uh,
if I don't.
yeah, or vice versa. Yeah, we'll figure it out. If we don't know the answer, we'll figure it out for you.
Right.
And I love it. I love getting questions. I love helping people. I like living vicariously. I can't keep every bird in the world. So if you've got something I can't keep, or you've got something different, or just a basic question, I want to help. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we love the interaction with you guys. I mean, you guys are family to us, and we love hearing about your birds, and we love, you know, kind of sharing stories back and forth and getting to know everybody and what you guys are doing and your successes too. So keep it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely living vicariously through people's success. All right, where can they find you, Chris?
Okay. Facebook, YouTube, I'm Bird Nerd, and Instagram, I am Bird Nerd 4. So feel free to reach out to me, follow, like, and subscribe our channels so that you can see more of this awesome content. And yeah, those are my main channels to get a hold of me by.
Yep. All right, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, Reddit, and if I forgot something, and
We,
it's all either the Javiary or the underscore Javiary. I've gotten several people from the podcast who've reached out on Reddit, so that's interesting.
oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, and
That's good.
our finches, like I've talked about, that's the main finch one that I'm in. I'm sure there's others that I need to join. So if there's another thread I need to join, comment below and tell me.
I was gonna say you're
But
getting to the point, Jay, where we just need to put a screen up here that has all of your social media feeds and where they can get you at. And I'm a
just
simple man. I'm like I can't handle more than three, or I'm gonna just start dropping balls left and right. So
yeah, and I'll miss one every now and again. And sometimes, like if we're not friends on Instagram, sometimes the requests go to like a pending request. I got to let people in and stuff, but doing
yeah,
my best. I want to answer your question. I got a funny, I think I sent you a screenshot of it. I got a funny comment the other day, or a funny DM the other day. It says, "I'm just wondering if you actually answer DMs." And I said, "Yes, I absolutely do." And then they're like, "Oh, great." And then they sent literally like 15 questions. I was like, man, you could have just asked the
Yeah,
questions.
right.
But yes, we really do answer
Yeah,
DMs. Yeah, love the interaction. Chris and I, it's late. I'm on the East Coast right now, so it's really late for me, but
that's really
we're
late.
here. We love talking birds and we want to help. So if you got questions, and
Absolutely.
we need new topics, so send them
Yes.
to us. We know a lot about birds. We don't know a lot about podcasting, and we need your help. So
Yeah. Yes, please.
yeah. All right. Well, thanks y'all. We'll catch you in the next one.
Appreciate you guys. We'll see you.